And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It is a special Thursday night edition of the Weekly Pitch. I'm Matt Price, coming to you from my house in Rockland County, New York. Well, last week, MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred said there was no doubt, 100% certainty, that we were going to have an MLB season in the year 2020. Well, that 100% has now gone down by a long shot. What does this mean for Major League Baseball and its players, especially after talks broke down and a couple proposals were taken off the table following the previous weekend? So with that, I wanted to discuss with my panel for tonight. We've got this year's Weekly Pitch crew, James Murphy and Mike Memis. I love the headgear, guys. Wish we were wearing it. Wish you guys were wearing it, actually, for different circumstances. But here we are. So let's just get right to it. Mike, what are your thoughts? First of all, just give us your take.
So this is yeah, I know. This is bad for the MLB. First off, you were supposed to have you're going to possibly lose. You're already losing part of the season, right? So that's not going to help your popularity. You had a good momentum coming out of last year.
They've lost almost half the season already.
No, you lost half the season, and to fans, to people who are casual, they don't look good at all because you either are going to be on the side of greedy owners or greedy players. I think most are on the side of greedy. Or most are saying it's greedy owners, not greedy players right now. But it's just overall awful for the league. And Manfred's not helping. His statements seem like the opposite of what you're supposed to say in these situations. And now we may not have baseball this year. I don't know if we're going to have baseball next year start on time. Because remember, it's the CBA ending next year. And the players may, we don't know what's going to happen if there's no season. Will the players decide to strike early? Are they going to try to do something like do a lawsuit? Like, we don't know what's going to happen, and it's just an overall disaster. And I love baseball, but it's really bad it's just really bad for the MLB, everything that's happening.
James, Mike said a key word just now, disaster, and I'm guessing by your facial expression you're thinking the same thing.
Gentlemen, as we're well aware, I resent both on with every bone in my body, and there's video evidence to confirm this. And you can guess that I was even more irate as I have learned slowly but surely that there are 29 more men just like them. And I'll tell you how I came to this conclusion. I went in, and throughout the process, I could see where both sides were coming from. Obviously, not as much money is going to be going around in a pandemic, so to an extent, I saw why the owners had at the time, and I saw why the players wanted as much money as they did. And over time, I started to sympathize more and more with the players, but there was one probably broke camel's back. It was that, I want to say 72 hours ago, in the midst of all of this, Major League Baseball brokers a postseason deal with Turner worth billions of dollars. So you mean to tell me you can strike this deal worth all this money, but you can't keep all these minor leaguers, have as many rounds in the draft as you do, pay the professionals who are out there now the 100%, and keep all of these affiliates, many of whom you've cut? It just boggles my mind. It boggles my mind. When you're trying to grow, I try and shrink it in any way. I try and make it so that there are going to be less players, less teams across the country, and just less to go from in general. The sport itself is struggling with getting people there. And someone else made a really excellent point. There's organizations everywhere, and even in some of the smaller markets, who had more than enough money for the top guys. Take, for example, the Miami Marlins. As I'm sure you guys know, they usually get no one to fill Marlins Park, but they were still able to sign Giancarlo for 13 years, however the hell he was worth. It's just, It's mind-boggling to me.
The
And
Marlins
I
actually
don't
weren't able to
get-
fill that park. They weren't able to fill that park since the opening day of that park in 2000.
Exactly, Matt. Exactly. Exactly. I can't. It's just I don't have the words. I don't have the words. And the worst part, it's like not even that the owners are as bad as the Wilpons, that there's a commissioner. They look like choir boys, and that should be so embarrassing. That should be so embarrassing to him. But apparently, it hasn't gone through his head. Keep it going, man. Keep it going.
You know, I'll say this. Michael Kay put this statement really well months ago, and by months ago I mean several months ago, when obviously MLB was investigating the Astros cheating scandal. He doesn't know who's had a much worse year, the Houston Astros or whoever it was, or Rob Manfred. Well, I think after what we saw, especially over these past couple weeks, I think this pretty much answers that question. It has to be Rob Manfred. Rob Manfred and Major League Baseball are right now the laughingstock of the sports world. They're the laughing stocks of the sports world right now. I think you guys can agree with me on that. I want to say something very quickly. So shortly after Rob Manfred made his comments saying that, you know, he basically taking back his 100% comment that he made a week ago, MLBPA Executive Director Tony Clark made this statement, and I quote, I'm quoting this right now off of Twitter. Players are disgusted that after Rob Manfred unequivocally told players and fans that there would be 100% be a 2020 season. And remember, Manfred made that announcement on SportsCenter on ESPN. He has decided to go back on his word and is now threatening to cancel the entire season. Any implications that the Players Association has somehow delayed progress on health and safety protocols is completely false, as Rob has recently acknowledged the parties are, quote-unquote, very, very close. This latest threat is just one more indication that Major League Baseball has been negotiating in bad faith since the beginning. This has always been about extracting additional pay cuts from players, and this is just another day and another bad faith tactic in their ongoing campaign. So that was the MLB Players Association Executive Director, Tony Clark, with those comments. And here's what I have a problem with. What I have a problem with is that Rob Manfred said over a week ago, that there will 100% be a baseball season. When we hear what Rob Manfred said this week, that's going to let every single fan, including us three, that's going to pop up in our minds that Rob Manfred basically said what we wanted to hear. You don't want fans to hear stuff just so they can hear it. We don't want to hear what we want to hear. We want to hear what is actually happening. And based on what we've seen, not just this past weekend and not just the past couple weeks, but in the past couple months of just trying to get some sort of a season together, with the uncertainty of what the season could be like for next year, because obviously in regards to the pandemic, we don't know how long this is going to last. We basically don't know what's happening. We don't know what's happening. So, we can't stand hearing what we want to hear. We want to hear what's going to happen. And right now, we may not have an actual full baseball season, from the looks of it, for the first time since 1994, since the players' strike in 94. And it's really bothering me right now as someone who's a big baseball fan, someone who's watched the Yankees and the Mets for years. I am so sick of all this drama. I can't take it anymore. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so everything has been leaked, right? It seems like the MLB is leaking it to try to get the public favor, and it hasn't worked, obviously, because they're more mad at the MLB than they are at the players. Here's the thing, right? Okay, so Manfred can institute a 50-game season, and they get full prorated pay. Owners will make that money back if the playoffs happen, and obviously you're hoping the playoffs happen. And if not, it's a loss, but it's not as big a loss because you're only playing 50 games of the season that you're paying players. So the thing is, right? So let's say they do that, but you also have to remember there's precautions you have to take for COVID-19. And the MLB said we're not going to have a season unless the players waive any legal, legal action or something like that involving the MLB. So basically, they can't sue or something like that if players get COVID-19, which players aren't going to agree to. You have to have a system of testing players. Every other league has done that. They've come up with a system for testing players, or what happens if a player tests positive, or precautions for teams. Like the NBA had a lot of those where you can't go to certain places. MLB, if they've done anything, it hasn't been released. The only thing we've seen released is the owners don't want it to go too late because there could be a second wave. And the other thing was, I forget the other thing. Oh, the other thing was the players wanting, if they were either at high risk or they lived with someone at high risk, to get or to still get compensated and still get the service time. That's all we've seen, and that isn't enough. And MLB had so long, right? The season was done in March, and it seems like the MLB was just like, we're going to try to do this last minute so we could try to pull a fast one over the players, and it hasn't worked, and MLB is struggling because of that, right? The NBA was prepared. The NHL was prepared, right? You see there's 6 commissioners on SportsCenter right now. Obviously, this is going to come out later, but right now, this SportsCenter special, the other 5, they have plans for reopening. It's not fully confirmed for some of them, but they have plans. They figured it out. They started to figure it out with their Players Association.
And
LB
guess which league does not have a plan?
Yeah, LB has nothing, and you're right. You're the 3rd, maybe 2nd biggest league in America, right? And you're
$11 to $12 billion industry.
You're less prepared than the NHL, the MLS, and the WNBA. Are you kidding me? Look at all that money MLB has. They should figure it out. It's inexcusable.
It's very inexcusable. And another thing I want to just quickly ask for clarification on, Mike, if I could just stay with you for a second, is that didn't both the MLB and the MLB Players Association agree that as we were in the opening stages of the league shutting down operations until further notice, that when we have a season, when COVID-19 protocols are fully in place, that no matter what kind of season it was, that the players would get full prorated salaries? Was there another aspect that I missed in that agreement?
It's disputed. So the players say yes. The owners, it's a little more complicated. Initially, the stance was only if there's no fans.
Right. That's what I
only
was
if there
thinking.
are fans, they're going to do that. If there's no fans, they're willing to renegotiate. However,
Right.
There was a letter earlier this week that LBPA sent to Athletic, which is a little different story. They're like, well, we did say that, and players don't have to change their things, but we hope that they would negotiate in good faith because of the fact that owners are not making money. Problem is, it's not a revenue sharing system. It's not the NBA where, right, because of the fact that we're getting, the TV contracts and you're getting more viewers, the salary caps increase. It's going to do a little less this year because China stuff and shortens end of the season, but it's still going to go up. Meanwhile, you have, and that's every sport besides the MLB. MLB doesn't have a salary cap. Now, that's why the players initially, when the league said we're going to do a revenue sharing system, the players were like, no, we're not going to do that. We don't want a salary cap, even if it's even though the luxury tax is kind of uses a soft salary cap,
Yeah.
it's hard to do, right? And they're not right. It's not revenue sharing, and they're not also sharing in your losses, right? So that's just like you can't expect the players, the MLB, right? MLB keeps making more money, right? But are all the players' salaries increasing? Yes, some are in arbitration, but you aren't renegotiating every contract. So expecting them to also share in the losses doesn't make sense unless you're going to offer them incentives down the road saying, oh, we'll have a minimum salary floor for free agents that are getting signed so they're not going to get cheapskated, or arbitrations one less year for every player, which some teams, probably MLB teams, wouldn't like, or something like that. But so far, it seems like the LVPA is giving concessions. They're having expanded playoffs because they know the owners make more money on that, much more than the regular season. So it just seems like the owners have throughout, right? They try to save money no matter what they can, paying minor leaguers very little, not putting enough money into facilities in Latin American countries, trying to pay, do the draft so players will take as little signing as bonus as possible for some teams like the A's. And it's just, and the players, that's why they're wary. They don't want to get, they don't want this to fall in this trap where the owners can pay them less and use it to even maximize their wallets even more. And it's just, the relationship between the MLBPA and MLB is terrible. It's probably
It's
maybe
probably the
NFL
worst
and
it's ever
MLB is almost as
been
bad,
since
but
2000, since 1994.
yeah, I mean, it's been bad. It hasn't, like, especially recently, players complaining about, you know, Machado not getting signed till March. You know, that's it's terrible. Like, and now we kind of knew this was going to happen. It's eventually going to boil over. We're going to continue to have this thing just be under the rug. We expected it to be after the CBA ended, but because of this pandemic, it seems like that got sped up.
I want to stay with the salary part of the conversation for just a sec. James, this is where I'll turn back to you. So over the past weekend, there was a 70 or 80 plus game proposal that was on the table. I can't remember the exact number, but it was 70 plus or 80 plus games. And players...
76 games.
It was 76 games. Okay. It was a 76 game proposal put out by either the league or the Players Association, and the players would get 83% at least of their prorated salary, which in my opinion, with all due respect to the players, is still a lot of money. That's still a lot of money that they would be earning. So if I were to have a calculator, here's my calculator, okay? If you were, let's say, Garrett Cole was supposed to earn $36 million in his first year of his new 9-year contract with the New York Yankees. So $36 million. If you do, let's see, if you do, let's say it's 83%. 83 times, I'm just saying 36, 2,000. I'm doing the math
But
wrong.
he's
I
not getting
apologize
paid
about
that
that.
entire thing. He's getting paid for the amount of games he played. So if you're saying it's going to be 86% or whatever, it's going to be 86% times 50%, let's say, if you pay 50% of the games. So you're already making less. That's the thing. It's like, why should the players pay for less than they got signed a contract? It's guaranteed contracts, and unless they have an act of God provision, which could possibly include something like a pandemic, then the league, in terms of legal setting, I don't think the owners have any. They just, kind of want the players to give up less.
But the point I'm making is, even though the players would be giving up some money, when it comes to the proposal that was turned down, if I were to look at Garrett Cole's contract, and I know this is this is not the amount of money that any of the other major leaguers would make, like another would on a regular basis could be making 12 or 13 million a year or something like that, or even somewhere in the single digits when it comes to millions. But when you do the math, if I did 86% of 36 million for Garrett Cole, he'd be earning just less than 31 million for this year, which is still a lot of dough.
Well,
it's a lot of dough.
That's why there was that proposal where it's like a sliding scale of what you give up, and it's like the top players will give up the most, and then the lesser paid players will give up the least, to try to divide the players, but it didn't work. But you're right. But you also have the guys, right? The 40-man roster guys, especially the ones that weren't, signed as top draft picks, or where they didn't get that huge signing bonus. You're getting paid a good amount, but you're also getting paid much less. And also any minor leaguers right now, right? You're paying them, and they're still paying them. But let's say you did have a season, right? You're paying them so little already, and you're paying them even less. And obviously for Cole's going to survive, right? Harper's going to survive. Machado's going to survive, and they're going to still make enough money. But the point is the precedent, and I think that's right. Obviously, we know they're going to make money, and even the lower paid players are making more than most people, even though they do have to spend more on training and travel and food, and some of that's provided by the team, but some of that you do also pay for yourself, and it's if you get injured or something like that, you may have to pay a little bit for recovery or for a second opinion. Obviously they're going to still make money, but why? Why should that be? Why shouldn't the owners have to get less? Why should it be the players the one? Because the owners are already sacrificing the minor leaguers, they're sacrificing the employees, they're sacrificing a lot of stuff. They're
sacrificing draft picks.
Draft picks, yeah.
Sacrificing 35 rounds worth of draft picks. Guys like Jacob deGrom never would have had a chance if they went this year. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I don't know if it was past the date that they could withdraw also, because, right, I mean, a lot of people who weren't seniors would probably go back to college. Why would you want to go now unless you knew you were going to be a top pick, right?
That's a great point. That's a great point when it comes to drafting, because if you only have 5 of the 10 rounds that you would usually have in an MLB draft and you weren't drafted, then you might as well just go back to school if you didn't graduate
I
yet.
don't know if you can.
And why not? Of course,
I mean, I know with the NBA you can. I don't know about the MLB because I know like Jeter got drafted and he went back to college, I believe. But I think for a lot of leagues, it's not the case. It may be for the MLB, but I think there's a deadline. And for seniors, you have no choice, right? Seniors, you have to go in the draft. You can't like go to grad school. I think your years of eligibility of playing are up.
No. I'm saying those who did not graduate, like those who were sophomores, those who were juniors.
Well, I don't know.
They can go back to school depending
We
on
don't
if
know
they
that.
have a baseball.
I'm not 100% sure what the rule is with that, but also, right, a lot of these players are still going to hope to be signed as an undrafted, free agent because they did put a lot on the line to get drafted, and there are a lot of people that can get signed as undrafted.
James has been. I'm sorry,
bad.
Mike.
It's bad. And also, they're not going to get a year in the minor leagues, and the teams aren't going to call those guys up that just got drafted. So you're going to have a year. I guess you're training. I don't know if they're going to have exhibitions with the minor league teams. Like, they're probably not going to be a minor league season either. So you're also messing up all those players' seasons.
James is going to have a gasket if we don't get him back in this conversation. James, help us clear some of the air here.
In regards to a lot of the sophomores and juniors, you could sign with some sort of independent league team. I know where I'm from, we have the Long Island Ducks about an hour and a half east of the Atlantic League. So maybe they'll take someone on for a year before you sign with someone professionally.
My area has the Rockland Boulders.
To be in. And look,
New York Boulders.
Yeah, exactly. So there's plenty of independent league teams. Point is, there's plenty of independent league teams to choose from. And as decent of an alternative as that is, it should absolutely not be what we're left to do here. This is a game that should be allowing tons of people so many opportunities to play from when they're kids up until when their kids our age, trying to make it to the professional level. And I just don't understand where the league is trying to come from here. Because, again, you're trying to grow a brand here. Every single league is trying to grow a brand. It's what you try to do when you first come into the sports world, and you keep on doing it until who knows what. And I just don't understand how MLB thinks they grow the game by just cutting away all this talent. Because at the end of the day, this game doesn't happen without the players. The owners can do whatever they want, but if players do not show up, and even if there's a scheduled season, there's a good chance a lot of them will not show up. It's just going to spell huge doom for the league, and it's going to be quite the turning point, to be quite frank with you guys.
I'll tell you what. When I think about the league getting rid of all these minor leaguers, and you wonder what they're going to do, not just the minor leaguers, but the teams and their minor league affiliates or whatever minor league affiliates they have left, I'm thinking to myself, the term rebuilding, how teams rebuild? Well, guess what? There's going to be a lot of rebuilding here, especially in the farm system, a widespread form of rebuilding that we probably have not seen ever in the history of Major League and minor league baseball. Wouldn't you guys agree on that? Because that's what we're looking at right now.
Well, if you remember, they did cut some minor league teams. I know the Yankees had a lot, and they're going to get those cut, which I know. It's kind of unfair to have extra minor league teams. I honestly agree with that. But right, as the reason they have so many rounds in the draft is because you have all these minor league teams to place them. If that wasn't the case, if it was like the NBA has the G League and you have 2 rounds, right? Which makes sense because you have one team, one minor league affiliate for each team. NHL has those development leagues, so you do have a draft not as long as the MLB either, but still longer than the NBA. NFL's has a longer draft, even though they have a big roster, which is partially why. So they're already getting rid of minor league teams. I could see I don't know how it's going to be hard for them to stay in business, but obviously they rely on gimmicks. So minor league teams will figure out some gimmick to make money, I'm sure. That's kind of how you get it, right? You cheap tickets, you have some like theme night, you have a fun mascot. And it's not as much about the players, it's just about having a fun time, which they maybe just can drive-in movies for driving things at different ballparks. I know the Yankees are planning on something with that, and the Boulders are doing something with that, and other teams I'm sure are doing that. But it's and the minor league players can't even collect unemployment, right? A lot of them can't, and that would make them at least some money to sustain them. Not a lot, not a great amount, but sustain them until you get paid again or you make it to the major leagues. But right
Yeah,
now,
I mean,
unless
think
you're
about it.
cut
They were being paid what, $400 a week or $400 a month?
and you didn't get paid you didn't get paid when you're not playing. Also, they became seasonal workers, so they don't have to get paid when they're not playing, even though they're training with the team. They're maybe doing some endorsement deals for the team. So it's and they're gonna there's adopt a minor leaguer, which is gonna help some of them, but it's not enough to help every one of them be able to survive until the next year. And they're also going to probably not be as much in shape unless for the ones that are either from a wealthier family, or they did get a big signing bonus and they haven't had to use it all yet.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I want to point out, Bob Nightingale put this tweet out earlier in the week. It says, and this is a USA Today article that he retweeted, several Major League Baseball players and coaches have tested positive for COVID-19, which MLB says could also delay start of the season. Now, here's the thing. The season's already been delayed because of COVID-19, but James, based on where the MLB and the MLBPA are both at right now in terms of negotiations, do you think that after hearing that that article title, do you think that might have played a role in Manfred saying that they're not 100% sure that this season will happen?
I'm sure it played a role, but I don't think it necessarily played the role. I'm sure it will definitely have an impact on when the season comes back. Obviously, if the season comes back. But I think Manfred also didn't really think about what he was saying clearly when he was talking at the draft on Wednesday night. He didn't take into account all that it would take to get back. He didn't take into account all the safety precautions that we need. Hell, we don't even know if games would be played at spring training sites or at home ballparks, or even if there would be a Eastern regional format, or we would go by divisions. So
We didn't even know if there was going to be a biodome format.
Exactly. We don't even know if any of that's going to happen. Remember that people were talking about that for a while, and it hasn't even officially been ruled off the table. It still could very well happen. We still could well see a season condensed in Florida or Arizona or Texas or whatever I say as I do my Thriller impersonation. But it's
Arizona
just a
even,
whole
yeah.
thing that's got to be – thank you. And I mean, gentlemen, as I've said before, it's insanity. And there's just got to be some form of certainty. Even if it's something we don't want to hear, there just needs to be some form of certainty from Major League Baseball. That's all we ask for at this point. Just certainty and words that will stick for more than 5 days. That's all I want. You guys can go off that if you feel differently.
I mean, it got leaked by the MLB, it sounds like. So the MLB is trying to do this for more leverage. Obviously, they're like, well, this COVID, and you have to have the season short. So, maybe to get fans support more in a shortened season. But, yeah, that's going to be a problem, COVID. And they have to figure out something. Either you're going to have restrictions, you're going to have, maybe no contact. I don't know how you're going to do that. Maybe throw out the balls often, or no tagging, you air tag them. I don't know what you do, but yeah, that's always going to be an issue. That's going to be an issue with all the sports. MLB is going to have to figure out something. Obviously, right, you have the KBO right now, and they haven't had issues with that. Obviously, they have much less cases in the country, but baseball has happened, right, with this thing going on. They're having it in Japan as well, so they could do it. I also, I feel like there's an option also. You could go to one of those other countries and make sure they're all tested. Everyone's tested before, and have games there, but it would kind of be weird, right? You can't have fans. It's played in a different country, but right, a country that has the stadiums and isn't having the cases. Although I don't know if any league has as many teams as MLB does, but that's also an option I'm thinking of. I don't know how realistic that is, though. All the travel costs and if even those other countries would be willing to do that, and we would probably have to pay out of pocket to get that to happen.
You know what I'm having trouble understanding when it comes to these negotiations, and this is the last point I want to touch up on in this show, is that for the players, they want to have full salaries. Obviously, you wouldn't have the season without fans. It's just not safe yet. But you want to play as many games as possible because both sides want to end the year either on September 27th or sometime in early October, and they want to be paid full salary. The league is willing to give them full salary, but only if they play less games. So why is it these two can't come to an agreement? Because right now I'm stumped. I find it unfathomable, to be honest. I don't get it.
For me, it just goes back to something that's a part of life, and that is when you're trying to get a deal done in any sort of industry, the key word for getting anything done is compromise. Especially in a time like this, it's a very small chance you're going to be able to get all of what you want. So a lot of times, so what the league and the players, I feel like, should be doing is to an extent meet middle. Maybe instead of 100% of what they're paid, they get 90% of what they're paid. Maybe instead of like the 48 game, the 82 game, they go for, let's say, 68 games. But it's just, there's just no effort to meet in the middle. There's no negotiations. We've only seen this offer has been presented. This offer has been rejected. We're not seeing, there's dialogue on it and the sides are talking. There's been none of that. And that just shows to go how bad the relationship is between the players and the owners. And it's something that has to change. And I don't know. There just needs to be compromise on some ends. Like I said, I totally feel for the players. I do feel like they're getting jabbed. Again, it goes back to the owners poor, even after signing the TV mega deal for the postseason, which is just nuts. But at the same time, there needs to be some sort of compromise because that's just a fundamental part of life. You got to learn how to compromise.
Right. I mean, they teach us that when we were growing up in elementary school and all that. You got to compromise. You got to figure out a way
That's
to
how
do
simple
things.
it is.
Even though
know how to do it. They don't know how to do it, man.
Even though this is a business, it seems that we're right back to square one and they forgot how to compromise. You're absolutely right. You know, the owners want this, the players want this. Why can't we meet somewhere in the middle?
I'd like to see
You know that song that you hear on the radio?
Years old.
You know the song that you hear on the radio, Why Can't You Just Meet Me in the Middle? Why can't you just meet me?
Yeah, because I'm losing my mind.
Yeah, we're losing our minds more than a little. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, it's just like my cousins could figure this out. They're 14 years old. They're 14 years old, Matt. They can figure this out.
Here's the thing. We also have there's been different offers, right, for each side.
Yes.
And they've all been different in their turn. However, in each one for the MLB, it's been the players getting about a third of their original salaries, whether that be with the combination of games played plus the amount of the salary they're going to get for each game. The MLB has it where they're going to get 100% of their set. Well, they're going to get 100%. They're going to get prorated, and it's going to be. It may not be 50. It's somewhere around 50%, sometimes more, sometimes less, with their offers. And it just seems like, right, there's such a discrepancy. It's such a discrepancy that, they're offering other incentives, but none has been good enough to move either side. And it's just...
It's like an imaginary game of tug of war. They're like playing an imaginary game of tug of war, and they just can't find a way to just, you know what? We're dead even. Let's meet in the middle. It's a game of tug of war, and right now it's the bad kind of tug of war. You don't want this. None of us do.
Goes on forever.
So I guess my last question
is... The difference between this one and the other one is... No, I was just saying that the only difference between this tug of war and an actual tug of war is that there's no one to say game over.
That's right. Yes. So now I guess my last question is, and this can be a straight yes or no question. James, I'll start with you. Yes or no, after what we saw this past week, will we have a 2020 Major League Baseball season? Yes or no?
No.
Mike?
No.
Well, for me, I'm still optimistic. I'm optimistic, but right now I am, to be honest, leaning towards a no. And as a baseball fan, it breaks my heart to even say that. But I'm not saying no completely. I'm just saying I'm optimistic. But I don't know. With the way things are going, this is just not good. I just hope that the players and the players can play ball and the fans can watch them playing ball, even if there are no fans in the stands, and then things can get back to normal next year. But who knows? We're just going to have to wait and see. All right, I want to thank my panel, James Murphy, Mike Memis, for joining me on this very special Thursday edition of the Weekly Pitch. Join us tomorrow. We will have another edition of the Weekly Pitch, a special Friday night edition. You do not want to miss it. And all episodes of the Weekly Pitch air at 6 o'clock right here on YouTube. For everyone here, I'm Matt Price. See you tomorrow.